Hi, Mark here from the Tangibound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangibound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangibound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangiboundNetwork.com and see if Tangibound Network is right for you.
Life sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time. Stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to the Crazy Life, everyone. My name is Jen, and with me we have Brian. Hey, Brian.
Hey.
Heno is getting himself a suntan with his gorgeous wife, so enjoy, guys. We miss you, and we're jealous.
Yeah,
We're fair.
they're on their last day, I believe. So
Yes.
you get to come back to the grind.
Heno keeps posting these gorgeous pictures
Yeah.
all over Facebook and just making me green with envy and absolutely sick because they're so gorgeous and they're having such a great time and they have the biggest smiles and I want to be there. But unfortunately, I was not invited. So that brings us to our show tonight. Yeah, I'm not even gonna. So, all I can say is life us, and I'm sorry. So, I know we haven't been consistent, and I'm not gonna lie to you and say we will be because I don't know.
Well, one of the weeks we had a good reason this time,
Okay.
which was that I had COVID.
Okay, you're right.
So
Yeah.
there was
COVID, and he's the heart of the show. So
one of the weeks that it was supposed to be a recording week where we had already been behind, and then it was then the week we should have recorded. And I remember I sent a thing out about it, and then Wednesday or Thursday, whenever we were supposed to record, came, and I was just like, I still can't stop coughing. And if I talk for more than 10 minutes, I start coughing. Like I can't stop. So I was like, well, this isn't going to happen. And then, it's.
see, folks, we're doing it for you.
Yeah.
We were protecting your ears.
Yeah. I was just protecting my throat and my voice. It was because I that week, I believe I did Salty Language on Monday. And listening back to it, it's like you can tell I'm not 100%. Like I'm still congested, my throat's still scratchy, and afterwards, it was, I realized that it was probably too soon. I probably should have waited another week or done a real short show kind of a thing, and I guess I'll just go ahead and lead in this, and I had. A few weeks ago, I had COVID, and then my mom got COVID, and we're both, doing all right now. I'm still noticing that, every once in a while, if I take a real deep breath, I'll cough a little bit, or that cough's not 100% gone, but it's mostly gone.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I feel okay. And we were both fortunate in that, we got mild versions of it and everything. It still stunk. Like, I don't recommend it. I still not something I want again. It was interesting though, and I'll tie this more into what we usually do here. If you really want to hear me talk all about it, you can go back a couple weeks on Salty Language and listen to the intro when I'm talking about like every detail. But I want to tie it more into mental health here. And it was interesting. I had therapy a couple days ago, and I was telling her about it, and she was like, okay, well, now that you've had it, she's like, how do you feel as far as your, because for a long time I was terrified of getting it because, first of all, I didn't want it. Second of all, I didn't want to give it to my mom,
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And lo and behold, I got it and gave it to my mom, basically. So, now it was, over 3 years in before we got it, thank goodness. But, she was asking me, she's like, how do you feel now? And I said, it's interesting because I feel better on the hand that I've seen that the world didn't end over it, the kind of the boogeyman of it lessened it a little bit, but I don't say that flippantly or in a way that I'm going to just go out and not still be safe,
Right. You just have more perspective.
Right. And I told her, I said, and if anything, because unlike a lot of stuff in life, like if you have an anxiety towards something, usually once you do it, you can then use that if you get anxiety toward that kind of thing again. Well, COVID's different because each time you get it, it could be different. It can layer. It could still kill you, and you don't know going in, So it's not quite the same as when you're afraid of a big crowd. So where typically going into a big crowd, once you've been in a big crowd, you can usually go, oh, I've done this. I know how to cope with this now, So I told her, I said, what it's actually done is it actually has reminded me about how comfortable I had gotten about safety with this. And it's like, it's still out there and it still really sucks. I mean, it took us both down for about 2 weeks, and we got the mild version, like it could have been way worse. Thank goodness it wasn't, but it could have been way worse. And I was like, so what it's reminded me is that, like, hey, when I'm going to be going into densely crowded places or very populated areas, that maybe I should be putting a mask back on just to try to minimize the chances of things and whatever, and like, I'm not going to the like early pandemic level paranoia type stuff to where we were like afraid of every little thing because we didn't really know anything, But I have been since when I'm going into stores and stuff. I've been masking up and, trying not to, like when I'm done, trying not to still not touch my face, because I think I got a little cavalier about that. I'm going into stores, and while I'm in the stores, I'm touching my face, involuntarily. We all do it without even realizing it. And it's like, okay, well, that's the other reason to have the mask on is so that I don't touch my nose and stuff,
Yeah.
And then, when I'm done, making sure I get out to the car and I just put a little hand sanitizer on and just stuff like that. Just the return to those kind of things I don't think is a bad thing. Like when I go to my doctor's office, you have to wear a mask in there still anyway. They have not lifted. I know a lot of hospitals and places have lifted all the mandates on masking, which honestly I never thought they would. I really thought hospitals and medical facilities might keep it, just because you have people coming in all the time with colds and all that kind of stuff,
They're there for sick people. So
that's what I was thinking, right? Is it was like, well, this actually seems like good policy in these places.
Right.
Like regardless of COVID, just cold and flu and all that kind of stuff, But
exactly.
but whatever. And, we can all still choose to wear masks when we go in these places. And even if my doctor's office drops theirs, I probably will still wear it. Because, for years I've had a thing about doctor's offices. For years and years, I'm always like, oh, God, every time I'm in here, there's always someone sick. That's why they're there, like you said. So it's like, I don't want to be near you because I don't want those germs.
Right.
You know, like I try to sit as far away from people as I can when I go into offices. And I have forever. This isn't a COVID thing. I mean, I've done it since I was a child. I try to sit away from people. So, but like I told my therapist, I said, I'm really proud of the fact that this didn't lead me into a paranoia stage. It just led me to, like I said, just like, hey, maybe you need to not be so comfortable, with everything. And it's tough because, all the federal emergency stuff is expiring. WHO has basically, the world has moved COVID into endemic stage to where it's like, hey, it's going to be here,
Yeah.
And it feels so cavalier. It's not, but it feels so cavalier because it feels like everyone's kind of pushing this into, afterthought kind of thing. And it's like, hey, it's still killing thousands of people a day. Like it's not, it's not like no one is dying from this anymore, and that's the worst part is you don't know every time you get it. Like I said, it's a spin of a wheel. You don't know. Like right now, most of the strains seem to be weaker, thank goodness. But, you never know. And I don't, and we haven't had it around long enough to fully know if you get it multiple times, does it stack and do damage? All those kind of things. We've only had it for 3 years. So it's, but I think for me, I'm going to, like I said, go back to a little more vigilance and just be a little more careful with how I'm doing things, because like I said, even though I had a mild version, it still stunk. It was not fun.
Yeah.
Like I don't want this again. So yeah. But it was good talking with her about that. And also I'm now down to the lowest dose possible of my antidepressant.
Nice. How do you feel?
The same. I don't feel any different. So that tells me that either the medicine wasn't really doing much for me, or that
You have an immunity to it now.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That it's just that it may not, So, and that's okay. That's not a bad thing. But I also think a lot of it has to do with, like I've said before, I think learning about neurodivergence and autism and such, and seeing how I fit into that category a lot, has really helped me take a heavy weight off of my shoulders. And I think a lot of that weight was a lot of my depression. I'm not saying all of it. I'm by no means am I screaming from the rooftops I'm cured, because as I told my therapist, I also, since moving down in dosage, have not really had a depressive episode or anything to really test me. Not that I'm looking for anything.
Right.
So I don't, that still is a yet to be seen.
Well, sometimes when you don't have a hammer and you use a screwdriver to hammer it a nail, still get the job done.
Yeah.
So, it's one of those things that, is it the right thing for the job? Yeah, maybe you've been hammering with a screwdriver.
Right.
And maybe now you can be able to open to finding the actual hammer.
I actually think a lot of it is that, like I said, I think I've been carrying around that weight from like my teenage years of all the bullying and feeling like I don't belong. Like, why don't I fit in with people? Why do I have to struggle? Why do I mask? Like, why do I stand by the wall until I realize how I fit into a room? Like all these things. And now it's a little different because I'm going, oh, it's, because I'm this, or I feel I fit this way. So it's like, it's okay. I'm just a different kind of piece of the puzzle or whatever, I'm not the same piece as everybody else. And that's fine. And I think a lot of it is that acceptance. And also just knowing why I have all these, like sensitivities to sounds and feels. And, like I posted a thing on my Instagram of things that like autistic people tend to be more sensitive to. And for years, when I'm in rooms, I can hear the hum of electricity. I can hear high-pitched sounds out of a TV to tell you if it's on or off before there's a picture on. You know, like stuff like that most people look at me really weird when I say that. You know, but I can't help it. You know, I'm sensitive to those things. So like I said, and now I go, okay, it's because I'm neurodivergent. Like, okay, I can live with that. I have a reason at least now. Like, this isn't just some like, oh, you're just weird, dude, you know?
Right. And maybe that's your hammer.
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily mean a hammer or screwdriver or whatever's in your toolkit. It doesn't have to be a pill.
Right.
It could be a support group. It could be, you know, an online blog that you're going to. You know, there's so many different ways that you can nurture your mental health.
Yeah.
So, and I'm thrilled that you're finding that maybe the medicine aspect of things in this particular case right now is not necessarily needed.
Right.
Because you're doing so much better with alternative stuff.
And I think a lot of that's in that too, is that I have learned better coping mechanisms through therapy, through my own research, and, you know, and also by therapy in that, like, you know, my therapists have pointed me in directions of, hey, maybe look into this, because they know I'm the type that will go read up on something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll read up on something and not be like paranoid about it or, oh my God, this is me every time, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, go read up on this and then come back and let's discuss this, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done that plenty of times. And then it's like, okay, this makes a lot of sense, you know. And like my therapist, as she's even learning more about neurodivergence and autism and ADHD and all that kind of stuff, because the thinking on a lot of those things is changing as we're speaking, you know.
Yeah.
The way things are diagnosed, they're looking at a lot of this and going, this is kind of archaic. We need to change how we do this because it's not effective. Like, it actually, you know, it's a lot of people that are being turned away from a diagnosis then go talk with other people and they're like, well, how come I identify with everybody in here, but they're telling me I'm not this? You know, it's like, it doesn't make any sense when I have all the symptoms of something, you know?
Right.
So yeah, but I think, like I said, I've got a better toolkit. I've got, I think I'm just in a better place with things. So I think across the board, you know, the way depression hits me is not the same as it was. So like you said, it's like maybe a pill is not the effective technique for me anymore, you know, and that was again,
or at least right now.
Yes, that's what I meant. Yeah. And that was one of the reasons why I was like, hey, let me try going off of this and let's see where I'm at, you know, and then down the road, if I feel I need it again, I can, you know, either go back on this one or I could try a different one or maybe a different combination, whatever at the time, you know. So
yeah,
I just think that for me right now, it's now again, I do feel the need to stress just because this is where I am. Anyone listening, that does not mean that you should go off of your medicine. And if you do feel you should go off your medicine, of course, as always, please go talk to your doctor first. I've been in contact with my doctor as I've slowly weaned off of mine. You know, I'm not, I mean, I'm at this point, I'm doing it on my own, but with his instruction. And if anything changes, I am to alert him immediately. You know, like if anything, if I start feeling weird or something, you know, because basically what he's told me is every step, you know, when you step down, he's like, if you feel bad, then call me, and we'll probably move you back up, you know, because maybe you've gone down too far. But thank goodness so far, I've not felt any, I mean, I haven't felt even the least bit different.
And I love the fact, and people, please take note of this. I love the fact that you are not blaming the med. You are not blaming your doctor.
Nope.
You're not mad or you know, yelling about how I wasted all this time on this stupid drug and the drug didn't work, blah, 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 and going down that path. I think I love the fact that you have such a good conversation and relationship with your doctor that he listens to you when you say, you know what, I don't think this is working for me anymore. He listens to you and you guys are working together to solve the solution.
Right.
I
Because
also-
the first thing he actually even mentioned to me when I said, I mean, aside from like why, was like, you're in talk therapy, right? And I said, yep. And he's like, and you have a psychiatrist, right? And I said, yep. And he said, okay. He's like, I want to make sure like everything's in place in case
right.
this doesn't work well, so that you don't like fall into one of those pits that depression can spring up out of nowhere.
Exactly. And you're aware, they're aware, you have everything set in place. So you have lots of safety nets as needed.
Yep.
You go off the meds, you're going along and things are going great. You come up another roadblock. I can hear in your voice, and since I know who you are, you're not going to be adverse to trying some other medicine.
No.
If the circumstances recommend that.
Yes.
And that's the key. And because keep in mind, folks, we're dealing with the brain and we're dealing with mental health, which is based upon 3 chemicals in your brain. They know it's based upon the 3 chemicals and the amounts get out of whack. They have no idea what the correct amount of each one of the chemicals needs to be to have a quote unquote normal brain.
Well, and even recently, I listened to a podcast with a psychiatrist, and he was even talking about how realistically, they don't really know how antidepressants work. Like they have theories, and they keep testing to see if those theories are accurate, or I should say hypotheses. I shouldn't say theories, but and they keep testing to see if that's what it is, but they have not been able to completely hammer down why they work. So that's why some do and some don't for people, and what works for me may not work for Jen, which may not work for this person, which, so.
Because it's all variables.
Yes.
So, go easy on your doctors to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Obviously, you have to be a partnership because, every brain's different. Everybody's different.
Yeah.
How you react to a medicine's different. It is not an exact science in any way, shape, or form.
Right.
It's like, your grandma makes something, doesn't use a recipe, and you try to recreate it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's going to work, sometimes it's not.
Yep.
And some things work for a while, and then they don't work anymore.
And sometimes
We
people
all
have,
change.
and sometimes people have to have an additional medicine added in. Like I can't remember the name of it, but there's one, they run commercials all the time where, it'll be like, this works with your antidepressant to add, because sometimes an antidepressant isn't enough for some people. And, there's unfortunately a lot of people that their depression is antidepressant resistant, which is, a real shame because, it takes away a potential tool,
Right.
But yeah, like you said, I'm not mad at any of it because for years, I think the medicine was working. It did something for me.
What you needed at that
Yeah, because there were for sure times where I'd have a couple times where I'd run out for 4 or 5 days or whatever, which, you shouldn't do if possible, but sometimes things are out of your control. And I could feel the difference. I could feel that there was no floor, Now I'm not worried about the floor, if that makes sense. Like, I think my mindset is just healthier right now. And like I said, I have not had a real test for it yet. And, when I do, again, I've got a good support system in place. I stay communicating with them very well. I talk with you, I talk with Heno, Tony, Jeannie, my mom. Like, there's people I talk with enough that somebody will probably catch if something's wrong with me. Because I'm a lot more honest about that stuff than I was when I was 14, because I didn't know how to communicate that stuff then. Now, I won't shut up about it, So I'm just in so much of a better place right now. And it's weird because it's not like life is really any better other than it's my mindset of not trying to carry that weight on my shoulders anymore, of really letting a lot of that stuff go from when I was younger. I really think that was a lot of my depression, or at least the weight of the depression. I feel lighter overall, and I feel like I don't know. I feel like I give that off more now. You know,
definitely.
like I feel like I give off
You're self-secure too.
Yeah, I feel like I give off a much more positive vibe than I ever used to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's where I want to be, and it's still a path that I'm still on, and still got to work on, and keep making sure I stay on it. It's not something I can just coast on. You know,
Right.
much like I said about the COVID thing. You know, you don't want to get flippant or too comfortable, because next thing you know, you're hitting a tree. You know.
It's a journey, not the destination.
Yeah.
I mean, there is no quick answer. You know, unfortunately, it's you know,
even
can't go
medicine.
to the doctor. I have a cold. Okay, take X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
It'll last 2 days, and you're good.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't work that way with mental health, and it shouldn't. I mean, we're constantly growing, we're constantly changing, and our mental health should change with us.
Yes.
You know,
And I think I was going to say real quick that I think that's the key in all this, is that I realized that things had shifted, much like when you go, oh, wow, things are worse, maybe I need to adjust my medicine up. Then I was like, you know, I'm feeling a lot better. Maybe it's time to shift my medicine down, because maybe I don't need to be as medicated. And I really, you know, like I said, the next step is the one, it scares me a little bit to go completely off, you know.
Yeah.
It scares me, and it won't be for a few more weeks, but it's scary, because that's going to be dipping right into the deep end. You know, there's no floor then from the medicine. You know, there may be a floor, but it's not from the medicine, you know.
Right.
And that's where it gets scary. So I'll, of course, you know, I'll talk about it as I go through it, but yeah, sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. Yeah, actually, kind of a similar situation ended up happening. I was going to a nurse practitioner for mental health, and I loved her. She's so good. And she's the one that turned me on to, it's Capuletta. I always call it Calypta, and it's Capuletta.
Right.
So I got it married. So this Capuletta stuff, and she's the one that got me on it, and I love it, and it's working great. But I was also on sertraline, which sertraline is good for emotional outbursts, like crying. And that's a big thing for me, is crying has always been a big thing.
Right.
So I was on sertraline, wasn't quite working enough. So they put me on, because they have 25 and then they have 50. Well, they upped me. They said just take one of each. So I was doing 75 a day, and things were going great. Well, I just went through a depressive period, which is unusual for me. And I have a new nurse practitioner who I had a first visit with her, and we got along great. And she saw what I was on. She's like, "Oh, you're on 75 of sertraline. She's like, how do you feel?" And I'm like, "Oh, feeling pretty good. I mean, I don't cry, so that's a good thing, you know." And she's like, right. She's like, "Well, you do know high doses of sertraline can throw you into a depressive state." I'm like, "Well, I've never really been prone to depressive states."
Right.
She's like, "Well, if you start feeling low and down and stuff like that, try cutting back and just taking like the 50. Or, you know," she's like, "you can play around a little bit with those. Take the 50, see how you feel. If you want, take a 25 and see how that goes for a week." She's like, "Just play around a little bit with it. And that's fine." I said, "Okay." And it was we had a really great open conversation. And I told her, because you're not supposed to drink. I do not recommend drinking when you're taking mental health meds, because that's what we need to say. We all are adults, and we all understand that circumstances do arise where you want to have a drink. So, you know, and I'm very honest with her. I know that I shouldn't be doing it, but by me not telling her, that's going to cause more issue.
Well, and she can't do her job as well. And you're literally lying about the results of things at that point, you know. And it's like, I'm with you on that. It's like, if you're going to do these things, it's like, it's your doctor. Be honest with them. Even if you lie to everybody else, not that I'm advocating it, you know, but be honest with them. Yeah.
Because that was the first thing she told me. She's like, "I love how open and honest you are."
Yeah.
Because you also understand, you know, I can just give you advice. I can't force you not to do something.
Right.
Or to do something.
Yep.
She's like, "But by you being open and honest with me can help me make the best decisions for the circumstances."
Well, also when you tell her stuff like, "Hey, I've had a depressive episode," well, maybe alcohol and a medicine together can lead to that. You know what I mean? Like, these are things that then they get all of the information. So
Right.
it's like right now, I'm not going to go into it, but my sister's going through a thing and she's experiencing different stuff. And my mom was like, have you told the doctor? And she's like, well, no, and she's like, you have to tell them everything. Like they need to know so that they can treat you effectively,
Mm-hmm. Because you don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe, like you said, maybe something that you're having a bad reaction to.
Right.
Or
exactly.
maybe there's a better medicine on the market that's better suited to what you're doing.
Exactly.
My manager just had a really bad head cold, and she thought it was sinuses, so she was taking Zyrtec, and she was treating sinuses, and it wasn't getting any better.
Yeah.
And then she thought about it, and she's like, well, maybe I'll try it. So she tried the head cold stuff, the NyQuil and DayQuil.
Yeah.
2 days, it was gone.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things that she was treating the symptoms, which seemed logical and reasonable, and didn't think anything of it. She was treating the symptoms that she had, but she was using the wrong med.
Yeah.
So it's the same situation, if you don't tell the doctor the full truth, how are they going to know what's going to be the best choice
like
for you as a person?
Years ago, one of the antidepressants I was put on, like within 2 days of starting it, I started having a lot of suicidal, thoughts. And it's like, hey, I haven't had these in years, this isn't normal. And I know a lot of antidepressants. I just was telling a friend of mine as she's getting on them, I'm like, the first few weeks on antidepressants can be brutal. Like you can feel just cranky all the time. There's a lot of side effect, or like the one I was on, remember I talked about on here, I was manic for almost a week, and, but then it evened itself out, and most of them do. But when I called my doctor and said, hey, I'm having suicidal thoughts, they were like, you need to stop that immediately.
Correct.
Like the medicine, Yeah, like that is not the right one for you. We will put you on something else. And had I not called though, and no, I'm not saying I would have offed myself, but you never know what I might have, what, even if I didn't, even just that torture for days of maybe I give it a couple weeks, it'll be okay. What if they, and it's like, God, dealing with that for 2 weeks is horrible. So, you got to talk to your doctor along the way, even if it's something I understand a lot of people, they don't want to pester their doctor, but you kind of have to sometimes.
And not just the pester part of it, our nature, especially the nature of mental health, is to hide.
Yep.
And it thrives, depression, all of that stuff thrives on hiding. They want you alone. The disease itself wants to separate you from the world, wants you alone, wants you not to speak. And that's how it lives.
Right.
It continues to grow.
Yep.
So you have to break through that. I mean, one very pivotal moment is I was on,
it's okay not to say it because then,
it's an important one.
Okay.
And anyhow, so there is a medicine out there that has been linked to obsessive compulsive behaviors, especially around gambling, sex addiction, and food addictions.
Right.
And it was commonly prescribed for bipolar, which bipolar folks are naturally inclined to obsessive behaviors.
Right. And sometimes just depending on their bipolar, but sometimes also to make increasingly bad decisions.
Right.
So if you make them more likely to make bad decisions, that's usually a no-no recipe.
I was on that medicine. I didn't realize it. I had already started gambling pretty rough, pretty, strongly. And I was hiding it.
Yeah.
And I finally got up enough courage to mention it to my therapist, my psychiatrist. And he immediately did oh my God, we need to take you off this immediately.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
right.
Why? He's like, it's been linked to obsessive behaviors, compulsive behaviors like gambling. He's like, you cannot be on this anymore. And it was working really well for me.
Yeah.
I had no idea. If I would have stayed quiet about my gambling and not told him, I could probably still be on that medicine.
Mm-hmm.
which it didn't cause me to gamble, but it was a contributing factor.
Well, and it could be a worse. Okay, yeah, and it could be a worse scenario, like now, where you're trying not to gamble. If you were on a medicine that makes you, like really feeds the.
But that's what I mean, because there's no way for me to say, and I would never dream of saying that the Abilify caused me.
Oh, no, for sure.
Right,
and I know what you're saying.
Was it a contributing factor to how much I gambled and how far down I went to that rabbit hole?
Could be.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, there's lawsuits against the company because of situations such as mine.
There's for sure correlation there. Exactly. And that's enough in that kind of scenario to where it's like, maybe I just want to avoid this. Because even if you don't know for sure if there's causation, there's correlation, and that can be enough in this scenario.
Well, it was to the point, and folks, I'll always be honest with you. I remember the first time I told him that I was gambling, and he was taking me off the Abilify, and in that first conversation, he told me, because I had not told my loved ones yet, he strongly advised me to tell them immediately.
Yeah.
And he's like, you have to close down the accounts.
Right.
And I was crying at not the thought of me having to tell people.
Yeah.
I was crying at the thought of having to close my account.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Because they were like my children. Everyone, I knew exactly when I was going to get my bonuses here, and I got to check this one. I checked them multiple times a day, find out who's giving me what, when they're giving it to me. I mean, I was so far down that rabbit hole that him telling me to close and walk away from my gambling account brought me to almost sobbing.
Right.
I couldn't do it. And I told him, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this.
Yeah.
And, eventually I was able to get there to close them down. But man, I will never forget that. It was as close to My Precious, if those are familiar with Gollum and Lord of the Rings. My phone and my gambling were my precious.
Yeah.
I think he was taking my ring away.
I think a lot of people for a long time could have appreciated that from the social media perspective. Because a lot of social media, a lot of us are so addicted to it that the thought of having to, like, if tomorrow someone was like, you have to delete this account, and you'd be like, but I don't want to, you'd get really upset. But I've made friends there, and I've this, and I did. Yeah.
I went through that when I separated from my Twitter account.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I think people, it's not the same, but I think you can at least glean a little bit of understanding in that, if there's one, if there's a social media you absolutely love or a game you play on your phone or whatever it is, and someone tomorrow was like, you have to delete that, and you're just like, but. So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was crazy. But again, to kind of keep going back to that main point, it's all about that conversation.
Yeah.
And keeping people in the loop. And I'm going to geek out here for just a moment. One of my favorite lines in Harry Potter, I'm a huge Potter fan. Don't judge me. There is a pivotal moment in the movies, and in the books, obviously, but in the movies, where Luna Lovegood, she's the one with the long blonde hair, kind of goofy girl. She's out in the forest and feeding the Thestrals, and the Thestrals are the horses that only people who have seen someone die can see. So she's out in the forest feeding them. And Harry Potter happens upon her. He's out walking. This is after he has seen, he knows that Voldemort's back, and no one believes him that Voldemort's back.
Right.
So he's very depressed, and he's very isolated. And he looks at Luna, and they're having this conversation. And he said, something along the lines of, I got to do this on my own. I got to fight back, and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, I don't think so. I don't think you're alone. And he's like, what do you mean? She's like, well, I think that's what he wants you to think. Because if you think that you're all alone, you're easier to defeat.
Mm-hmm.
In that moment, you just see this flip switch in Harry. And he goes back and starts talking to Hermione, starts talking to Ron again. starts filling them in on what's going on, and he starts gathering his support back together. And I think that is a perfect juxtaposition to mental health.
Yeah.
Because we get into that spot where we're like, I'm going to fight this on my own. I can handle this. I'm going to make this happen. And the reality is you don't have to. And that's how it gains its strength. All you have to do is just open your mouth and start talking and start adding people in. And as soon as you start doing that, it gets easier. The more you do it, easier it gets.
Yeah.
Better you feel. You just got to take those first steps.
I've had people ask me how we're able to do it so openly on here. And I'm like, well, we've been doing it for years now, first of all. And I told them, I said, at this point, I'll talk to pretty much anybody. Anyone that talks to me about mental health or, going on antidepressants or any of that stuff, I always, of course, put the caveats of, I'm not a doctor and you should always talk to your doctor or a professional. But it's like I'm more than willing to share my experience with someone or just be there if they need a person for whatever, and it's at this point, I don't see it as like brave or whatever talking about, it's like, because we've done it so much now that I'm like, this is just the conversations we have, like, to the point that, like, I bring up stuff on salty language that we've talked about on here and whatever at times, if because, like this last week we talked about a guy teased his neighbor basically, and the neighbor had a bag with like tins of Pokemon cards in it, and the guy beat the guy with the bag of Pokemon cards. And I was like, there's a good chance what he was making fun of him for. It's like, was he making fun of him because he had Pokemon cards and he's an adult man? Or, it's like, whatever it is, it's like, it all comes down to maybe don't taunt someone because you don't know what. And it turned out this guy had, I forgot what it was, but it was a psychological disorder, I believe. And it was like, it's like, you don't know what someone else is dealing with. And you don't know when your whatever might be the straw that breaks the camel's back, or they may not be able to have a logical response to what, like a lot of us might be like, yeah, ha, kind of thing. Maybe they can't. And when you do these things, you may be thinking you're doing it all in fun, but it's like, if you don't know that person super well, that, you don't know what you could be triggering in that scenario, so it's like, maybe let's just stop this and be nicer to people, and you
never know where a smile will get you.
Yeah, and
no, when asked why I do this and why I'm as open as I am, I always go back to the same thing. Robin Williams said it best. He's like, I think the saddest people are always try the hardest to make people happy because they know what it's like to feel absolutely worthless and they don't want anybody else to feel like that.
Yeah.
And that's exactly it. I've been there in my own way. Everybody has their own journey, but my journey has been really dark sometimes and very hard. And I felt so alone, and I was fighting so hard and not knowing how to get help and not knowing how to speak and how to vocalize what I needed, that I can't dream of someone, if I have knowledge and someone else is struggling, I can't dream of not being that person to say, listen, this is what I've been through. There is hope. I'll do my best to help in any way I can.
Yeah.
Because I can't, oh my God, I literally would be not the person I want to be if I kept all this to myself.
Yeah.
Not to mention all the people that have talked to me about what they're going through. That helps me.
Yeah.
Because I can pick up new techniques. I can pick up new tips. It gives me different ways of thinking about things. It reminds me of where I was and how I was able to get to where I'm at now. Yeah. I mean, it's a whole reason for 12-step programs where people get together to share their lives and share what they've done, because you understand each other and you're there to support each other and remind each other.
I was going to bring in, what Heno has pointed out to us countless times when he goes to his men's group or whatever, when he's like, you know, even though he's been in this group for a long time, sometimes people who are
brand new bring things to the table, or somebody who's been there and I don't want to say failed, but, you know, like I guess for lack of a better term, fallen off the wagon, you know, and then come back. You learn from them as well. And like you just said, it's like that's the point of those things, is that we're stronger as a community. No matter what group it is, we're stronger as a community. There was a reason that the old, you know, the old saying of it takes a village to raise a child. It wasn't that any one person, like that the parent of that child is a failure. It's that it's just stronger when everyone's involved, you know. And it's similar to anything else, you know, we deal with, whether it's addiction or mental illness or just whatever it is. We're stronger as a people when we're together and help each other, you know, then no one falls behind. You know, it's the, you know, like when you're only as strong as the weakest link kind of a scenario. Well, if everyone helps the weakest link be strong, there is no weak link, essentially. You know, yes, by absolute measurable metrics, there will be a weak link. You know what I'm saying? But it's still the idea that we all can help each other not feel like the weak link or not actually be a weak link at all. Not that I'm saying a person with mental illness is a weak link, you know, but it's just how you perceive yourself and how others sometimes do. But, you know, like you said, there's so much just talking about this. It helps me as well as others, because as I've talked, you know, like right now, I mean, God, I've read, I don't know how much stuff on different mental health and mental illness things and how to do this and how to keep your mood better. And I've read a ton of that stuff. But every once in a while, I still stumble across stuff that I'm like, oh man, that is mind blowing. Like I never thought about that. Or, you know, like those kind of things. I never looked at this scenario this way. And, or like I said, learning about neurodivergence even, that's a whole new world and all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I know you and I are the same in that, like you said, we've been through stuff and we're both also very much the kind of people that would, if we could take others' hurt, we would. Like, we would do anything we could so others wouldn't suffer. And that's part of why we like doing this and why we talk to, I talk to people on Twitter, or I'll talk to anyone about this stuff, is it's like, if I can help you not make the mistakes I did and wait 20 some years to get help, I'm 100% going to try, you know, because it sucks. One of the best things that happened to me this week, I have met someone, and in very early on, we'll see where things go, but I have met someone, and we were messaging back and forth, and he messaged me that he just left therapy and just was really thrilled with who his therapist is, and they get along great. He just had a really good session. He texted me this, and then he follows it up with, I'm sorry, I really shouldn't have said all that, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And my instant text back was, no!
Yeah, that's right.
That's amazing. I mean, I'm so happy for you that you have a therapist that you feel comfortable with and you feel good when you leave there. That's what that should be about.
Yeah.
And I said, that is nothing to say sorry about.
No, not at all.
That's amazing. And I said, and I'm proud of you, because quite frankly, it's hard for people to go to therapy, and it's even harder for a lot of men to go to therapy.
Yep.
So the fact that you are taking upon yourself to go to therapy because there's things that you want to work on, that's huge. That's something to be celebrated. That is not something to hide and be embarrassed about.
And that is not exclusive to having a mental illness. Like, if you are just a person and you're struggling, therapy can do a lot of things, because sometimes, you know, these people have outside perspectives that can help sometimes that your family's not going to have, because maybe they're too close to it too. You know, sometimes you need that person who has no skin in the game to just help you. And, you know, distorted thinking can affect people that don't have depression and anxiety, you know, I mean, aside from the normal levels of those things, you know. So, you know, and again, you know, having a good toolkit's not a bad thing for anybody.
Exactly.
So,
And there's something where you have your deep, dark thoughts that you cannot share with your parents, with your loved ones, with your friends, because you know they're going to worry about you, or you know they're going to try to fix something, and you just need to say it. You're not doing anything about it, but you just have to get it off your chest. Therapy's the perfect place.
well, and
You can just like dump.
yeah,
Like blah.
I was gonna say you can make those, and I don't mean in like mean kind of ways, but you can make those kind of jerk comments that you'd like to say to somebody. You can kind of just leave that in the room in that scenario, because like you said, there's no. I mean, even if there is judgment there, a good therapy session, that you won't feel the judgment there. They may judge you, but you shouldn't feel it really. You know, like
Yeah. No.
so.
And a good therapist understands where it's coming.
Yeah, right. Like it's a frustration.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, my kid is such an asshole.
Yeah.
You know, a good sorry for the cursing piece.
Yeah.
But the therapist knows that you still love your child. The therapist knows that you're not going to do anything negative to your child.
Right.
That you just needed to get that out of your system.
Right.
Now, if you said that out in public or to somebody who, is involved in stuff, they may take it a different way. Your therapist, for the most part, should know
Yeah.
that was you expressing your feelings to get them out of your system. So
Right.
then you are a happier person when you go home and see your lovely child.
Right. So real quick, we've gone into all of this, but what we haven't done is you haven't talked about, like, is there anything you wanted to talk about as far as like your weeks since we've recorded or where? Because we talked mine, then we kind of got into this whole middle piece,
Like,
and we haven't really,
Yes, we did.
yeah, we haven't really gone over what's happened, like anything that's happened with you, like your trip or anything like that.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't talked to you guys since Utah.
Right.
I went to Utah to visit my brother. I went with my mother and my aunt. And all right, one thing I'm going to share with you folks, which was kind of amusing to me, but before we left, because I had stopped smoking for about 4 weeks, and before I left, a loved one very close to me said, "Oh, it looks like you're gaining weight back," and making comments. And so when I was on the trip, I was smoking again. And said person comes up and says, "Oh, you're smoking again." And I responded with, "I'm either going to be fat or I'm going to be smoking. Which would you prefer?" There was no comment about either made the rest of the trip.
Right. Which is fair, because in all honesty, they, especially the weight one, that,
Yeah.
that's out of line.
Well, loved ones feel that.
Oh, I know.
It's out of love, but
Yeah.
So, but anyways, I found that as kind of
Right.
a humorous take on it, and that is not how I would have been able to handle that in the past. That is only because I'm at the place I am now.
Right.
In the past, it would have been handled much differently, and this is much more of an adult way for me to handle it and not internalize it.
Right.
That's
the real key there, is that you didn't internalize it. I mean, the others, you can debate whether you handled it right or wrong. That's who cares. But the win in that is that you didn't internalize it. I hope, or maybe you did. Yeah. I guess if I'm going to be brutally honest, you sort of did, because if you went back to smoking because of that, anyway. But we don't have to get into all that.
Turn myself down about it. I knew that I was probably going to smoke anyways because of other issues, but other situations.
Yeah.
And I am actively working to quit again.
Yeah.
So I will quit. So it's just, I guess this is a good lesson for the folks here too. I got, left over from my gambling. I still have a lot of financial stuff I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
And it reached a peak. And since then, I feel like I've crested the hill.
Yeah. And
I'm going downhill now, which is in a good way going downhill.
Oh, okay. I was like, okay.
Yes, in a good way. I feel like I've crested the mountain, and now I'm heading back down to, the promised land, shall we say.
Okay.
To my goals.
Yeah.
So that's part's going good. But I was reaching that peak, Um, my dad and my dad has been having his share. He's 74, so, and I'm the sole caretaker ish. He still lives alone, takes care of himself, and everything like that. But I am the contact person. Anything goes wrong, any stress, anything whatsoever, I'm there. I jump in and I help take care of things. So I have that going on as well. I was also trying to quit smoking, eat better, cut back on my drinking, and keep up with my being dry with gambling.
Mm-hmm.
Guess who had a bit of a snap? I kind of snapped at somebody, and not to say it wasn't deserved, because it was deserved. I'm not gonna say even kind of. It was deserved.
Right.
But was he the reason I snapped at him? No. There was all the stuff that was leading up to that moment, and he said something that he shouldn't have said at the exact right/wrong moment.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so it was one of those circumstances. And since then, we've mended fences, and I did explain to him, I'm like, obviously that didn't sit well with me, and I won't back away from that aspect of it. But when I took a break, it wasn't necessarily because of you per se. I just realized that I was taking on way too much, albeit very good things. I was trying to do too much at the exact same time.
Well, we've talked about, Henno brought that up a long time ago about, how a strength becomes a weakness, essentially. Mm-hmm. And taking on too much is a good scenario in that, right? Like when, know, you're like when you lift up something and you're like, oh yeah, I can carry this. And then, you're like, go ahead and put on a couple more things. Sure, I got this. And then all of a sudden your arms want to give out, and it's like, oh no. And it's,
what do I do?
Yeah, like you said, it's like, so your strength at that point can kind of become a weakness in that you're just trying to do too much. Even if it is positive stuff, you still have to know, you still have to know your limits, I guess.
Yeah, and I was just, in all of the things I'm trying to cut out are significant mood issues,
Yeah.
I feel like I was just, trying to...
That's why
read a book.
I remember, who was it? Tim Ferriss talked about that, I believe, back when he was doing the, what is it, the 4-Hour Body or whatever the book was called. And I'm not advocating that diet, whatever. But I do remember, maybe it wasn't him anyway, but it was something to where they were basically like, your first week, like don't cut, I think it was like, don't cut, carbs and, sugar or something like that. Because when you do, basically, you're just setting yourself up for failure because it's too much. Like, you got to let yourself have one dopamine hit, basically. Kind of a thing.
The people that, on January 1st hit the gym and start up super strong and then die out.
Yeah.
That's why.
Exactly. I think that was kind of the mentality in that was like, if you remove too much, you're more likely to fail, than if you just go, okay, I'm not going to have this, and then I ease into this or whatever.
Because, if you think about it, I have additional stresses due to the financial stuff.
Yeah.
Smoking, when you stop smoking, it's notorious that it makes you cranky, of course.
Yeah, because you're having withdrawal. Yeah.
Yeah, you're having withdrawals. You're cranky as heck.
Yep.
So then you stop eating all the favorite foods and all this junk foods that make you feel good. So then you're really cranky about that, too. Then you're cutting back on the alcohol, which is the one thing that makes you feel good, that makes you even crankier. So you're trying to tackle 3 things that will make you cranky as heck while being in a high-stress situations. 2 of them, actually. So am I going to snap? Well, gee,
you might.
Seems like it.
Yeah, you might, for sure.
Did I set myself up? Oh, heck yeah. I set myself up.
Yeah.
So my trip to Utah, we took a bit of a step back and said, okay, we need to put some of this stuff down, these baggages that I picked up, let my arms rest a touch.
Yeah.
And then let's pick them up one at a time and let's work through it like a normal adult would.
Right.
And deal with them one at a time versus trying to handle them all together. And that actually has been very successful. I cut back on my sertraline, and that has definitely been a help. I've felt the difference there.
Okay.
So that's all good. And I will tell you, my Utah trip was the best vacation I've ever had.
Oh, awesome.
It was breathtakingly gorgeous, just insane. I had my phone we were driving because we flew into Salt Lake City, and then one day we drove down to the city of Moab, where they have the arches.
Right.
And if you're not familiar with the arches, you need to Google them, because they're fabulous. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
And it is awe-inspiring. And
Now,
so we went down.
Really quick, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you were out there around the time that I know people were saying out in some of the open west areas you could see the northern lights. Were you able to see any of those?
No.
Dang. That's too bad.
Not in the areas
Okay. Okay.
But it was just, and the weather was fantastic. It was in the 50s and sun every day. And I went with my mom, who I'm incredibly close with, and my wonderful aunt, who I'm incredibly close with. And my brother, who obviously lives out there, was with us. And we just had the best conversations. We talked about anything and everything. We reminisced a bit, but we also talked about, new things and books and music that we're seeing and we're reading and sharing these ideas. And just everyone was enjoying each other. And then my brother took us to all these places with fabulous food. I tried a banh mi sandwich, which is
yeah. I've only had one in my life. It was so good though.
It was so good. Philippines, right?
Banh mi, I believe, is Korean.
Oh, maybe it is Korean. Anyways, I apologize for those out there who are screaming on.
Delicious. That's all you have to know. Delicious.
It's delicious. And I had in it, and I went up there, and I'll tell you what's in it, because this is not something I would ever eat. But my brother was with me, and he's like, "If you're doing this, you got to go authentic." And I'm like, "Seriously, seriously." And the woman behind the counter is just shaking her head. Yes, yes.
Right.
So I took a picture of it because I knew I would never remember this. Okay. So the banh mi sandwich I got was the traditional cold cut. It's steamed pork roll, jabon ham, pork head cheese, pork pate, mayo, cucumber, cilantro, pickled carrots and daikon, salt and pepper, jalapenos, and Maggi sauce.
Okay. That's much different than the one I don't remember exactly what was on mine, but mine was a lot less
adventurous.
Yes.
They have some that are not as adventurous.
Yeah.
But when I looked at it, I'm like, oh, about this pork head cheese and pork pate.
Yeah.
I mean, the rest of it I'm okay with.
It's one of those where you got to just just forget what you're eating and just try it, I guess, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's what my brother, and so he got one that was more like, I think he got like a steak one or something that was more American traditional type of a thing.
Right.
And he agreed. He's like, let's do halvesies.
That's real smart. That way, if you get one that's a little too adventurous.
Yes. So we did halvesies. So we each took a half of each other's sandwich. But it was so wonderful. It was really amazing just to have those different flavors and try different things. Is it something that I eat regularly? No. Is it something I crave? No. But I'm so glad I had that experience. And he also took us to this place that has authentic Hawaiian hot lunch.
Okay.
Or plate lunch. That's what it is.
Plate lunch.
Authentic Hawaiian plate lunch. So we went there, and as soon as you walked in, because we got there a little bit before noon, and we were waiting in line, we were reading the thing, and just everything looked amazing, pork and chicken and rice and all these wonderful flavors and stuff. So we get our food, and as soon as we sit down, the lunch crowd arrived. And it's not the lunch crowd in suit coats and things like that. Oh, no. These are like the Hawaiian natives that moved to Salt Lake that are, working on the streets. And, these are these guys that work hard for a living but know what this is.
Sure, yeah.
They were lined up around the block.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then, of course, there's always the suit guys coming in and picking up the there's a few of those bopping around, but
Well, that tells you your brother took you to the right place, right? You know, because
absolutely.
as soon as you see a giant line, you're like, okay, this is a place the locals go. You know, yeah.
100% locals, local know what this Hawaiian food's about.
Sure, yeah.
And I was expecting, like suckling pork with big pineapples everywhere and that type of thing. No.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is like authentic-y stuff,
Yeah.
not the touristy stuff.
Right.
Oh God, that was so.
Did they have a poke there?
Yes.
Okay. Because I was going to say, if not, that'd be really surprising. Okay.
Yeah. He took us to a speakeasy,
Yeah.
which Utah, it's 1.5 ounces, not 2 ounces
Right.
a drink.
Yep.
And let me tell you, their prices do not reflect that.
Yeah, I bet.
But it was really good. And we tried so many different things that, I mean, oh God. I had what was it? I had a martini that was, I can't think of the name of the fruit, but it's almost like a pear. It's, I don't know. I want to, oh well, I'm not going to think of it, but
Okay.
it was like a pear-like taste to it,
Okay.
and a pear-like fruit, and it was so freaking good. Everything was just so fun, and he was such a great host. And there was this place that he took me to, it was a thrift store, but it was geared to high-end clothing.
Okay. Yeah.
So cool. I walked in. I mean, there were all these names. All these brand names. Michael Kors bag. There were just all that stuff.
Yeah.
It was just so cool. I was able to pick up a couple pieces that I really liked, and yeah, it was just everything about it. And the art. There was so much street art, and I can't speak highly enough. If you get the opportunity to go out to Utah, folks, please do. And you must go to the Arches. I look them up.
Jen, everyone else just calls them McDonald's. Just like it's not that fancy. You gotta just settle down. Like, you wouldn't believe this sandwich they had. It had 2 patties, an extra piece of bread, pickles, onions, and a special sauce.
Love it. Oh no, these were golden. These were red.
Oh, I see. All right.
So anyway, I can't speak more highly enough. We just had such a beautiful time, and it was so nice to. My brother is not very demonstrative. That's just who he is. He's
Right.
more of a quieter guy about his feelings and stuff. And
Yeah.
when he said goodbye, and hugged us and everything. And he doesn't. My mom always says, "I love you" every time she hangs up with my brother. And
Sure.
that's what moms do.
Yeah.
Well, I always say it back. Well, my brother just has a hard time with it. He just doesn't. But he appreciates it. He just
Yeah.
doesn't articulate it very well. He gives her a big hug before we go into the airport. He's like, "I love you, Mom."
Wow.
So we get into the airport, and I look over, and Mom just kind of stops, and she's all misty-eyed.
Yeah, I bet.
Like, I'm just leaving my boy. And I'm like, "I know, Mom." And she's like, "I'm okay." And, so we went, and he wanted us to try this waffle. So we got this waffle, and we're sitting at the airport. And I took a picture, and I sent it to my brother. I'm like, "Hey, we're trying this waffle. It's really great."
Yeah.
And I said, "Mom's really proud of you, and she misses you already." And he responds back, "I miss you all too."
Wow.
Yeah. And then he checked on me when we got home. When
Wow.
we flew in later that afternoon, he messaged me. He's like, "Hey, how was the flight? Everyone make it back okay?"
Nice.
That is not my brother,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to tell him that.
Yeah. No, not at all. Yeah. Yeah, because you don't want him to feel weird about it.
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah.
And I'm not going to point this out because I'm loving this.
Yes, exactly. Right.
I mean, this is the man at Christmas time who thanked me for me being here with the parents and helping them out and doing these things because it allows him to be able to do what he wants to do out in Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
And again, my brother doesn't, he feels these things. I know he appreciates these things, but he does not vocalize well.
Right.
And for him just to sit there and just out with it, he's like, I need to thank you. And I'm like, what for? And then he told me that. And I'm like, what? You're welcome.
Yeah. Right.
I said, I appreciate it. And he's like, and I'm here for you. If anything comes up or you need me or money or whatever, he's like, I'm here. You just call me and I'll do whatever I can.
Yeah.
I'm like, and to have, for those out there who do not have that type of support from a sibling when it comes to parent stuff, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm incredibly blessed and thankful that I have such an understanding and supportive sibling. I know that he's, we all have our strengths and weaknesses, but push comes to shove. If I ever need him to help me make a decision or to do anything or, talk things over, I know I can rely on him to have my back. And he also can rely on me to listen.
Right.
If he really has an opinion about something, it is my responsibility to actually listen to what he has to say. And because it's often easy for us to get defensive. It's like, I didn't want to do all this.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah,
I get it.
It's super easy to do that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But I know that, so just like he's trusting me to make the right decisions and do what I can here to make sure everything's good, I also have to listen and trust him that when he gives me his input, it's not him criticizing, it's him trying to make sure that we're making the best decisions we can.
Yeah, that it shouldn't also automatically be dismissed because he's not actively doing all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, because maybe he has an outside perspective that I'm not seeing.
Exactly. And exactly. It's not fair to just automatically dismiss his opinion either.
Yeah. And it's just, it really, it's just nice. It was so nice to reconnect with these people and just get grounded with them. And I feel so much closer to my family, and I'm very close to my family to begin with, but I felt so much closer to them even afterwards. And it was amazing. And then, my dad ended up going to, he had a party he needed to go to. And of course I took him because that's what we do.
Yeah.
And I took him to the party and he was giving a toast. And my dad has not really gone to a party or given a toast since I got married, and that was in 2016.
Right.
And my dad does have pretty significant anxiety.
Yeah.
And my heart just went out to him because I know, anyone who has crippling anxiety, it is not the couple hours that you're at the party that is the problem.
Nope.
It never is.
Yep. It's the days leading up. Yeah.
It's the week leading up to it where you're overanalyzing what's it going to say, what's going to do to all this stuff.
Well, and especially if you're giving a speech because you're going over it, you don't want to embarrass yourself, and all eyes are on you at that point, and
And then, it about broke my heart because the next 3 to 4 days, I took a video of the speech because I knew it would drive him nuts if he didn't have it. So I took the video of the speech. He insisted he gets it right away, so I gave it to him. The next 3 to 4 days, I've had nothing but, what do you think this meant? Oh, this one didn't get too many enough laughs. What do you think about this one? This one seemed to get it, but some people got it, some people didn't. Do I look shorter than usual? Because I really think I look shorter than usual. What do you think so-and-so said such and such? What do you think that meant when they said so-and-so? So, wow. The poor man was torturing himself for days later.
It's almost too bad that there wasn't any footage of it. Just be like.
Well, I took the footage of the speech.
Yeah, that's what I mean, though. It's like it's just almost. No. Well, that's what I'm saying. Is it's almost too bad that there was, because if it wasn't there, it's
If he didn't, he would have gone even worse, I think, because at least seeing it, he can see, oh, okay, people laughed a little bit more than I thought they did, and that type of thing, too. Jeez. Yeah, so it was, I think he needed to have the reality check.
Yeah.
Which was good. But those, have some heart, folks, when you're dealing with someone with extreme anxiety, because it really, you have no idea how you wreck yourself when you just lose all, you just destroy, your brain just destroys you.
Yeah.
And
well, and it just completely erodes your self-confidence.
Oh yeah.
Because realistically, I know your dad. I'm sure his speech was fine.
Oh, it was fabulous.
Because he's a good, he's the type, especially given a little time, I feel like he could come up with a really good speech for pretty much any scenario he needs to give one in, because he puts together thoughts, well, but, yeah, just that's got to be brutal.
And I've been there, and that's why, we talked about it a little bit. My dad, I know. So I lived through this too. I said, that's why I'm on medicine. That's one of the things it's for.
Yeah.
Is to help me with these things, because I know exactly what you're going through.
Right.
And, and he made the comment that most people who have extreme crippling anxiety make, which is, now you know why I don't want to go out.
Yeah. But see, now when it gets to that point, it's no longer just anxiety. It's starting to potentially become like it's getting into agoraphobia situation.
I know.
And I'm speaking because I know this, because me, I have to fight to go out a lot of times. Like I'd rather just stay home and have people come to me. But, so I get it. And you're right. When most people with really bad anxiety hit that point, because home is safe. They know everything at home. You can control everything at home, all that kind of stuff. And that's a bad scenario. It's like, once you say that, it's too bad that, people with anxiety can't really hear that the way it hits others' ears. Yeah. Because it's one of those to where it's like, oh, this isn't good. This is bad. That's too bad. I'm sorry. It sucks that he's hit that point.
Yeah. And I know, and this is from the stuff that, I take a lot on my shoulders.
Yeah, of course.
It is not mine.
Yeah.
But I still take it on my shoulders.
Well, you're going to, no matter what, because it's your dad. You're gonna worry or whatever because of that kind of stuff. Because again, like I just said, it's like when it hits your ears, you go, that's a measurable, that's a metric. Like when someone says that, that's the kind of thing, if you go to a doctor and you say, yeah, I don't leave the house, the doctor will go, oh, right?
And he does.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure everyone understands the whole picture. I mean,
yeah.
He goes to the grocery store.
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? It's like,
but he has his routine. Anything outside his routine is very difficult for him.
Exactly. That's what I mean, though. Is like when you tell a doctor that, or a therapist or whatever, that is a red flag. That's things are not, that's, we talk on this show all the time about when things affect your life negatively. If you're no longer going out for any other reason than, I have to run these errands, that's very bad, because that means that your anxiety is controlling you. You need help with that. And it sucks because, like I said, it's, I've been there and he's there and other people have been there, to where it's like, it's, you have to want to get help for that, though.
Right. And so that's where we sit. So,
yeah.
He's content with the way things are. And with me, as we've talked about, being so open and wanting to help and wanting to take as much pain as I can away from people and share my path and my journey, to have one of the closest people to me, and I can't help them.
Right.
And and I have to be okay with that, because they don't want me to help them. And I have to be okay with that. I have to accept. And that's really hard for someone who's a caretaker to accept, when someone is okay in their situation.
Yeah.
But I do. I accept that this is his life and his world and his choices.
I fully get it, because I have the same scenario. With who I live with, and it's that same thing, to where there's so much that it's like you could benefit so much from this stuff, but I can't make you,
Right.
you know.
And when you're faced with situations like that, there's two things to do. One is to walk away. You're not going to help yourself. Fine, I'm done.
Yeah.
The second is say, okay, and then sit down next to them and hold their hand.
Yeah. Just help however they will let you or they want you to help them. Yep.
Say, okay, this is where we're going to be. This is where we're going to be. And
Right.
you hold their hand.
Well,
and
like you
sit
said,
next to them.
you took him to that party rather than make him drive himself, you know.
He wanted to go, and by no means was I going to stand in his way.
Right. That's what I'm getting at. Like, you helped how you could. You went, you were a supportive, you know, face for him there. Like me, you've done, you know, like you did that with me where there were times where it isn't so much like, I mean, even after we weren't together, you've done it for me to where it's like, you know, this is going to be a really hard thing for me to do. And knowing that just that person is there helps. You know, even if you don't really do anything, you're just there, and that's enough, you know, sometimes. So
There you go, folks. There's another nugget for you.
yeah, it's just being
Sometimes
kind.
just being there is all that's needed.
It's the
Don't
truth.
say anything, don't have to do anything, just be.
Depressed people have said that for years sometimes, is that there's times where all you need from somebody is when you basically just want to, like, lay on the couch with your head under the blankets, is just for them to sit there.
Yeah.
You know, just
Maybe
know.
instead of being under the blankets, you lay on their chest.
Yeah, it's like just knowing someone else is there for you sometimes. Like I said, sometimes it's just enough. Sometimes that's all you need. You know, because there really isn't anything that can be done. You know?
And also note, folks, he said he wanted to go to the party. All I said was, sure, time and place. I'll take you, no problem.
Yeah.
I didn't say, Dad, you sure? You know what this does to you.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be a week of bad stuff. You really shouldn't put yourself in that bad spot. You know, it's going to be hard on you. None of that.
Yeah.
We both knew what it meant, you know, but if he was stepping up to it and he was going to face it and deal with whatever came with it.
Yeah.
Far be it for me to say no.
Yeah. To be another roadblock. Yeah. He's going to set a lot of roadblocks in front of himself. You know, just having anxiety, though he'll set plenty in front of himself. The last thing he needs is any more, you know?
Right. And even if it's coming from a ways of me wanting to protect him.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to see my dad go through this by any means. I mean, it's sad. It's hard. It's hurtful.
Yeah.
But it's his path. It's his journey. And who am I to stand up and say, oh, you're not doing it right?
Right. Well, and it's encouraging, like we said a little bit ago, it's like if basically the only reason, you know, the main reasons he leaves are to do grocery shopping and chore type stuff, when he shows, hey, I want to do something out of my normal routine, like you said, encouraging that helps because, you know, then that gives, maybe he won't see it, but it does give you something to where maybe if he says, oh, I don't want to go to this party for this reason, you could say, well, you went to the other one and things were fine. You know, like.
It's possible. He's got another one coming up this year.
Yeah.
His sister and brother-in-law are having, my aunt and uncle, Gene and Jackie, they're having a 50th wedding anniversary.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And Jackie already mentioned to him, she's like, you have to be there.
Yeah. Right.
So we'll cross that bridge.
Yeah, of course, right.
You know, and we'll do everything we need to do. Like, you know, I'll make sure I park in a place that we can leave at any time.
Yep.
He knows that we're ready to go whenever he needs to go.
Yeah. It's amazing how that kind of stuff is such kindness that so many people don't realize how much that matters to somebody, even if you go and you don't use it. Like if you go and, like you said, you park somewhere where it'll be easy to leave, and knowing, hey, at any time, if you say it's time to go, we're going, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
and we're not making a big deal. We'll just say, you know, the cat's missing you, or, you know, or I got to work.
Right.
Whatever we want to say.
Yeah.
You don't have to make a big deal out of it.
Right.
You just made, you know.
But that's such a kindness to show to people with high levels of anxiety, because again, even if you don't exercise it, knowing it's there, they feel like there's an element of control.
when I'll
Yeah.
never forget. And all I do, and by no means am I altruistic or anything like that. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm just paying forward the stuff that people did for me.
Right.
And that's all I'm paying, as I call it to my dad, I'm paying dividends. I'm
Right.
paying dividends against all that you invested within me over all these years.
Right.
I will never forget when I first got diagnosed with social anxiety disorder and I started talking about it with my family. We were coming up on a Thanksgiving thing and I was really nervous to go. And that was my social anxiety because exactly what my dad goes through, I was going through.
Yeah.
And my aunt and I talked and she's like, I will come out and meet you and we can walk in together if that will be better for you.
Right.
She's like, you call me or text me and I will come out and I will come to your car and we can walk in together.
Well, and it's amazing because people don't understand how that literally makes, as a person with anxiety, having someone come in with you, it feels like you've got the bodyguard out in front of you, like holding their arm out, like, okay, stay back, kind of a thing. You
don't feel awkward.
Yeah.
Who am I going to talk to? Or you go in the room trying to read the room. It's like, who do I know?
Well, and they can help deflect.
Mm-hmm.
If too much is coming at you at one time, they can kind of absorb some of it for you. And, it's like I said, those kind of things show so much kindness in people. And it really doesn't take that much extra effort for those things. And a lot of us don't think of those things because a lot of us, a lot of people don't have big anxieties. Yeah. Like a lot of people get anxious about a big party, but usually, once you show up, it's like, oh, this is just whatever. And that doesn't always hold, like a good example in your family's a lot because there's a lot of them. They're, they're outgoing. They want to ask all the questions. So they don't realize, a lot of people don't realize, not just your family, I'm not meaning to, but it's like, they don't realize that it's like, whoa, like I just got here. I don't need 90 questions right away. Like we're going to be here a while, like.
And I have honestly one of the best families in the entire world, at least in my opinion, and I may be biased, but there are traditionally at the big gatherings, those usually happen about once or twice a year.
Yeah.
We have 30 to 50 people.
Right.
So this is not, just like 6-7 people sitting around a table.
Right.
We rent halls and stuff for our family gatherings, especially our Christmas one. And we haven't seen each other in a year most of the time, sometimes longer, because we have people outside of town that come in. And we're just a very close-knit family, so we're all catching up on stuff. And we're also a very open, welcoming family.
Right.
So everyone wants to welcome you and make sure you feel comfortable and welcome. So someone who is not used to just walking into 50 people saying, hi, how's it going?
Yeah.
And hugs and, oh, I've heard so much about you. And, oh, I heard you do this. And, all this stuff, I can see how overwhelming it can be.
Yeah.
But if you just let yourself go in it, it's almost like floating in the ocean. It's just, you just feel so encompassed by this warm, loving acceptance.
Yeah.
It's really, but you have to jump in the water,
Yeah. The problem is that like most people who have anxiety, each hello and all that stuff is a drain on your social battery. And
well, you have to let go, and that's the big key.
Yeah, that's why I was.
Don't just let yourself go into it and just relax into it.
Yeah.
If you fight it.
Well, it isn't even fighting it though. It's just that it's a lot of energy to expel socially, and that's where like you said, it's like if you're used to it, it's different. When you're not used to that, then it's like, oh God, there's like 40 people here. I have to say hello to every one of these people, basically, and it's like, like, I don't have that much battery. It's like, can we just do a Norm thing where I walk in, everyone's like, Norm, and then we're good. like I wave back, we're good, that we can handle.
And for the record, my family still asks about you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like, you still see Stu? And I'm like, yes, I talk to him on a week, almost weekly basis and stuff. Like, oh, we hope he's doing well, and he is. He's doing great. Thank you. Like, well, tell him we said hi. I'm like, I absolutely.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. It's it's why I said it's always funny because whenever I would walk in, that's literally what it was. It's almost like like a person who's expecting to walk in and there's only like 4 or 5 people, and you walk in and you're like, oh God, this place is full. Like even though I know it going in, there's going to be this many people or whatever. It's still like like.
And I try to give people Cliff Notes, but it doesn't help.
Yeah,
there's so many of them.
Oh no, yeah, and like you said, it's like and it's a totally self-contained thing because the logical part of my brain would go, everyone here is like you said, they're trying to be warm, they're trying to be inviting, and they don't realize that it's a wall of a wall of inviting, and you're like like yeah, that it's still in, like I was saying earlier, it's not that it becomes a weakness, but a strength becomes a weakness, because the strength of it should be that it should be warm, like a giant wave of just love. But instead it's like, oh, I'm going to drown in this instead of I'm going to get wrapped up and snuggled in this,
You just got to let it go. Just let it flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is a lot. But
yeah. But it does. Like I said, it's like, it's coming from a good place, but it's when you are racked with anxiety, it's hard to,
oh, sure.
parse that correctly.
I just owned up to the fact that at times I've had trouble going in.
Yep.
And I've lived with that, this has been my world my entire life, so I even struggle sometimes with it. Not anymore, thankfully. But for a while there, because I love going to these things. And that was honestly one of the things that turned me on to, I need to get help. Yeah. It's because these things that I love to do, and I love seeing my family in these big gatherings and so much fun and talking with everybody.
Right.
And I was dreading them.
Yeah. And that's never been you.
Like,
yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, something's off. Something's not right here if I'm dreading going to something that I've always loved. Yeah.
And that was something like I've tried to explain. Like I saw a great thing. I think I shared it with you and Heno, to where basically, as a person with like sensitivities to noise and different stuff, like I can feel it build in me. And this, you've, seen it as well as had me explain this to you, to where I literally feel like my anxiety or what I can handle as far as noise and different stuff goes, I hit a point where I can physically almost like feel it up to my ears. And it's like, I got to get out of here. Like
it's the fight or flight.
Yeah. And, this meme that I saw was great because it points out basically how once you hit that level, like even someone just walking up to you calmly saying, hey, how have you been? You're just like, leave me alone. And you just want to run away, because you've become so oversensitized to it that, it's like
stimulated.
Yeah. I've tried to explain that to some people, even my family, because they've asked why I go outside so much during our family things. And I'm like, because there's just this wall of noise from 20 people or so. Mm-hmm. And I need quiet, and there's people everywhere. So I need space. Like I just need to see the open. I need a little bit of quiet for a few minutes, or even if it's just talking to one person.
Yeah.
I'm not hearing the wall of sound with it or any other noises that are coming through. And, because that stuff like drains my social battery so fast that if I don't do something like this, I'm going to be at 0 or negative really quick. And then I'm going to be just, I may dissociate. I may just get real cranky, like those. And I may essentially, in like the autism world is, you basically would talk about somebody having a meltdown, and I don't typically have a meltdown per se, but I do lash out.
Yeah.
And that I will start, like you said, I'll start snapping at people who don't deserve it, but I can't help it because I'm in protection mode.
Yeah.
I'm no longer, I can't do anything else but just be in protection at that point. And it's a state, it sucks. It's not, I don't want to do that. So I found that, going outside kind of gives me a chance to kind of calm down, refocus, all that. And then I can go back in for a little bit. And, but to everybody else, they can't understand because they don't suffer from that stuff typically. Like
That's my whole reason I started smoking. It was a social thing, but it also became my excuse to step out. Whenever I was getting overwhelmed, I'm like, I'm just gonna have a cigarette. I'll be right back. And as soon as you have a cigarette in your hand, everyone knows. They're like, oh yeah.
Yeah, right? Yeah, if I stood out there with a cigarette in my hand, like smoking, nobody would question it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just like that, I'm smoking.
Yep.
And
this isn't new. I used to do this when I worked at the video store, too.
Mm-hmm.
I would go out to get because we had an outside drop box, like out in the parking lot at the one video store I worked in. I would literally go out and get the movies from that sometimes for that same reason, even though there was a noise of the road and all that other stuff. It's different sound. So it counts. Like I'm not hearing whatever's going on inside the store or the same freaking movie playing over and over, whatever. So, I needed that. And nobody would question that because I'm getting the Dropbox. At the second video store I worked at, we did not have an outside Dropbox. So there'd be times where I'm like, hey, I need to go outside for like 5 minutes. And that turned into I'll just go into the bathroom or the stock room. And it's like, if you're in the bathroom for like 10 minutes, people are assuming, nefarious things are going on. So, it's like you don't really want people to think that.
Right.
So it's like, well, I can go in the stock room, or if I go outside, I can pretend to go throw the trash away or something, to get out of the store.
Oh, yeah. No, you do what you got to do to get through.
Yeah.
And that's really all it comes down to. And that's why we talk about having a mental health toolkit.
Yeah.
Because every little thing that's in the toolkit is stepping away. It's going to the bathroom and locking yourself in a stall for 5 minutes,
right,
doing your breathing exercise.
Yep.
All of those things are in your toolkit. You just keep them all in there so they're there, and you just pick out which one best suits the situation you're in.
Yep. That's why getting that toolkit's so important, as we've talked about a million different...
Putting it together.
Yeah, a million different things here. Yeah, it really is, that, like you said, that way when you go, oh, the hammer doesn't work in this scenario. Oh, a screwdriver will work. Well, I have one right here, kind of a thing. It's the same idea. And that's why a lot of these coping mechanisms and stuff are so good for us, because you need something, especially like you said, being able to get to a point where you can relax, and whether it's a 5-minute meditation or practicing your breathing or whatever it is, to just, okay, now I can go back and face of the world and stuff. That's why I've always strongly encouraged people when they have lunch at work, that's like, leave your work environment if you can, get out of, like, don't eat with your coworkers kind of a thing. That way you can have some you time and not think or talk about work. You can just, go to a local place and have lunch and stare at the TV, or get on your phone, or just, whatever it is, enjoy your food, and just give yourself that half hour, or whatever it is you have, to basically just the same concept, just recharge a little bit. And then usually you'll go into the second part of your day a little stronger than, if all you do is sit in the lunchroom and gripe about your work, because now you're starting the second half of your day just with pure negativity instead of positivity. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Well, we've been chit-chatting for quite a while.
Yep.
So I guess we should probably close. We will try our best to get back to our traditional, not schedule per se, but our traditional format, and start adding some more articles and stuff back in here, because I know we've been talking an awful lot.
Yeah.
But even though we talk an awful lot, I know you have something else to say out there. If you want to continue the conversations with us, you know what to do. You can reach us at the Crazy Life Podcast.weebly.com is our website. The Crazy Life Podcast at Outlook.com is our email address. You can find us on Facebook and find me through Facebook if you would like, or just shoot me an email to the Crazy Life Podcast at Outlook.com. Just say, hey, Jen, I will see it, and I will be happy to respond. And Brian, how can they reach you?
You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Stunami. You can find my other podcast at salty_language on Twitter. At saltylanguage.com should be back up working. We're taking the website itself down. It's just going to be a link tree basically. So you'll be able to find links to the show and all sorts of stuff that way. Yeah, if the other show is just me and my best friend talking about kind of whatever crosses our path. Like this week, we talked about Smashburger tacos, watching tabletop gaming, a video game called Redfall that looks like it's going to be a colossal failure. Guy across the street from me cutting his grass and not really knowing good technique. The story I talked about earlier with the guy beating his neighbor with Pokemon cards, just people being assaulted over a beer choice, which is stupid. What a hotel manager woke someone up by sucking their toes.
I saw that article.
Yeah, thieves stole $13,000 in shoes only to find out that they were for right foot only. Yeah, just that kind of stuff. So if you're, that's kind of stuff we usually talk about, just whatever weird stories we stumble across and stuff in our lives. So if you're into that, give us a listen, please. Show's not safe for work, so be careful of that. Yeah, you can find this show on Twitter at the Crazy Life Podcast, I believe at Twitter. On Facebook, we're facebook.com/group/Crazy Life Podcast. I almost forgot. Henno can be found on Twitter at Ida Henno or on Facebook at Henno Heiter or any of the other links. If you find one of us, you can get to the others, because if you just ask one of us, hey, how can I talk to so-and-so, we'll set you up.
Please check out his stuff, because I do not want to be the only one that's completely jealous of him. So go look at his pictures, and then you can be jealous too.
Yeah, he's posted some great stuff. Just his pictures of just being out on the boards and stuff. It was like, God, it's just, I'm not one, like, I can't swim, so I wouldn't be able to do that. But it's still so relaxing, the idea of just being able to kind of just be out there and just be one with the waves and stuff, Yeah, you can find, we're part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. So please go check out the other shows there. Yeah, I think that's all the stuff. Something I haven't brought up in a long time, which is our intro song was done by Henno. It's called Life Sucks. And if you haven't listened to it, like if you scrub through it, go back and listen to it once in a while. It's a great song. So,
Absolutely is.
Yeah. So as always, please reach out if you need help, and please check in on your friends, or just like we've said on here, just if you can help somebody else. Most of the time with this stuff, helping someone else, a lot of us don't know what to do, and really just ask your friends. If you know they're in a bad way, just how can I help? Or is there anything I can do to help? And if they say no, just say, hey, well, I'm here for you if that changes, kind of thing. And sometimes that's it. Like we said, just knowing someone's there for you can mean the world. So, please do that. And then, of course, as I talked about earlier about the whole, it takes a village kind of thing, like, find ways to strengthen things in your community. Just be nicer to people, help when you can, all that kind of stuff. Oh, gosh, I was in the grocery store a day or two ago, and there's a woman in one of the electric scooters in there, and the thing died. She's just in the middle of the store, and the thing dies. And I was like, and she goes, oh, no. She's like, I can't walk, She's like, excuse me. And she's like, and I was like, I'll go find an employee to help you, like, get another one, or I don't, whatever. So, I saw somebody, and, the kid went and got another one for her, and I was like, oh geez, that's gotta suck, because if you literally can't walk around the store, you're screwed, you're stranded. And so like I said, and all that did was take a couple minutes out of my day to walk over and find somebody else, or worst case scenario, I could have went up and got it myself, but I've never drove one of those. So
they're kind of tricky at times.
Yeah, whereas a lot of the employees have, because they have to bring them in from the parking lot and stuff. So I was this is the better option here, so, or if they don't have another one, they might be able to figure out something for her. So, but yeah, like I said, just be kinder to people, pay attention when you're in stores. Like, to other people around you so that, you know, you're not just standing in the way and blocking paths and that kind of stuff. Just like try not to be as oblivious to the world, you know. Like we all do it. Every one of us does, right? You know, and especially with a lot of us wearing noise canceling earbuds and stuff in the stores, it's so much easier to completely forget, hey, there's a lot going on around you. So, you know, just try to look up every once in a while and look around you. And that's the last thing I'm going to say here is look up. You know, it's something I used to do a lot, like when my sister lived here, was a lot of times she'd go out for a cigarette at night, and I'd go out, and we just kind of, you know, you just kind of look up at the sky and admire the clouds and the moon and all that kind of stuff. And it sounds so cheesy or whatever, but I've started doing it off and on again, and there's just something about it that's so calming, and just, again, it kind of reminds you where we're at in the, you know, in the universe as such, you know, so... and it's like I said, it's a good way to just kind of recenter yourself a little bit, because it takes your attention off your phone, off of TV, off of social media, off of whatever, you know, and it's just so, you know, whether it's that or the clouds in the daytime and the sun, or touch grass with your feet, you know, find ways to just reconnect with the planet a little bit, and, you know, just try to look up and look around a little more.
Yeah. 100%. All right, folks. Oh, so I always close, or I most of the time close, with wiggle your toes.
Right.
I haven't explained what that meant for quite a while, so
right.
I'll catch everybody up here. When you wiggle your toes, it is a technique to distract your brain. So when you're anxious or anything going on, I want you to just stop and wiggle your toes. And the thing with wiggling your toes, what's going to happen is a side effect of it is you usually find yourself smiling because it's kind of funny and no one knows you're doing it because you're doing it in your shoes. So you're kind of getting away with something. So that's part of it. And second part, the more important part, is what it does is increases the oxygen flow in your bloodstream because you're moving the muscles that are farthest away from your hurt. So it'll increase the oxygen in your blood will flow faster, and the oxygen will get to your brain. It'll help you feel more awake, more alert, and able to kind of put more thoughts together. Second aspect that's really healthy is the fact that it will distract your brain because it's something that you don't do on a regular basis. So by having your brain focus on trying to wiggle your toes, it makes whatever you're worrying about come secondary because your body is doing a physical function. So these things, if done in the right scenario, can be very, very, very beneficial for you. So, and ultimately, like I said, makes you feel silly.
Yep.
So nothing's wrong with feeling a little silly, especially you're sitting at your desk and stuff and you're typing an email and you're feeling kind of cranky. So you wiggle your toes and you're like, no one knows I'm doing it.
Well, and like you said, like the idea that a lot of us sit at a desk too long. So, you know, one of the downsides to that is that your circulation's not as good sometimes. So, I mean, ideally get up and walk around every so often, but if not, at least get your toes wiggling. Like you said, that does pump some blood towards your toes a little bit, which is really good for you.
And another secret, I do muscle isolations when I'm at my desk, including my glutes. You squeeze and hold one at a time for 5 seconds each, and you alternate back and forth.
Right.
Again, kind of feel a little funny, so you kind of like, I'm getting away with something. But your butt will look so good. You do that enough? Telling you, your butt just gets higher. It's kind of crazy. But so good exercise, but it also has similar effects as wiggling your toes.
Right, yeah. When you wiggle your toes, your butt looks amazing. Gotcha.
Exactly. All right, but go out and have the absolute best weeks that you can. And we will be here as soon as we can. So talk to you later and wiggle those toes.